Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter. I'm your Sports Illustrated beat writer covering the Las Vegas Raiders and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with you today. Thank you for sharing some of your day. It's Tuesday, and I know I'm very well aware you don't have to spend time with me every day. You choose to. I'm not entitled to your watching, reading, listening, but you do grace me with it, and I appreciate it very much. I don't take you for granted. We are sitting here today, 7 days from today, 1 week from today will be the opening of the 2025 Las Vegas Raiders training camp. And I want to go back and just reflect on yesterday's podcast because it got enormous response, and then get into today's. Yesterday, I talked about the future of Devonte Adams. I went through the entire timeline where a year before he came, I was reporting it, and begin to talk about everybody, oh, he wants out. It's been very clear. But we did talk about the future and what that could potentially look like. And I said something yesterday that I was not stunned that people caught it. I was stunned at the enormity of the response to it. And I talked about that the Raiders are all in with their quarterback situation. They're all in. And that's what I want to talk about today is the future of the Raiders 2025 quarterback situation and beyond. You say, Honda, we're 7 days from 2024. Why are we talking about 2025? Well, if you stick with me today, I think you'll understand all of it in context and all of it within a narrative that I think will make sense to you. I'm trying to take you inside what the Raiders are thinking, what kind of is their process. So the Raiders saw enough from Aiden O'Connell in 2023 that they decided, you know what? We have seen some things that he needs to improve upon, but we have also seen a young man that thrown into a very difficult position, and I've talked about it in the past, so I'm not going to get into it today and regurgitate it, who was not done well by his coaching staff at his first start in Los Angeles. Then that staff gets fired, and he comes in and he did exactly what the organization wanted him to do. I've heard a lot of people trash Aiden because, the passing situation after the first quarter in Kansas City, a game that they won, by the way. However, evidently, those people that like to throw that up there, they don't like to live in reality because they use it as if it's a mark against Aiden. And the point of the matter is AP said, we didn't want to take any chances at turnovers with anybody. We just wanted to pound the rock, eat up the clock, keep Mahomes on the bench. Okay, that was the decision of his coach. He had 9 touchdowns, 1 interception in the last 5 games of the year. I'm not trying to pretend in the Kansas City game that he threw for 500 yards. He didn't. But the point is they had a game plan for that game that if they were behind or if it was close, where they would have attacked with him. They didn't need to. And so that's not on him. That was a coaching decision. And it had nothing to do with them not having faith in Aiden. It had everything to do with they just wanted to trust their defense, keep the ball out of Mahomes' hand, and when they got it, they knew the defense would stop them. It's senseless to keep pointing to that like it's some very big, huge red flag when it was a red flag that was self-generated by the staff. And they addressed it. And they talked about it. It had nothing to do with Aiden. It had to do with this is what we want. And by the way, let me just tell you something. They get a lead this year, same type of situation. It would not shock me if they did the exact same thing. I mean, I can name numerous teams that were championship teams. When they got a lead with a dominant defense, it was literally about hand off the rock, eat the clock, let your defense do what they do. Did anyone watch the Baltimore Ravens win a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer? I did. I watched the Giants win games with Eli Manning where they said, hey, Eli, we don't need you to throw. Just hand the ball off. Let the defense do what the defense does. It's a team sport. But the Raiders saw enough, even if the multiplicity of his critics didn't, that said, listen, we're not sure. And this is what I love about the digital age. You can go back and fact check what I'm telling you. Go back and watch all the videos, all the podcasts, articles from the end of the season, the last couple games, and then all off season. I've not changed our mantra, not changed what the people in the organization said was, hey, we saw enough. We're encouraged that there may be something here with this kid. We're not sure. And I think the critics who point to the Minnesota game or the lack of the final 3 quarters of passing success in Kansas City, to me, are just as extreme as the people who point and say, oh, Aiden O'Connell's the next Kenny Stabler. I've not seen that. Now, I want it for the record, I really like Aiden a lot. And I think he has the potential to be a very good NFL quarterback. But we don't know. He may end up being a complete failure. We're going to talk about that today, a what-if scenario for 2025. But the Raiders are like, listen, let's build this team. Let's build it. Let's continue to get it to a peak performance level. And if the quarterback situation in 2024 doesn't pan out, we've got some really unique options. We can go get a veteran. We can go draft a rookie, or we can go get a veteran and draft a rookie who will tutor the rookie. And that's where the Raiders are at. So let's look at 2024 so then we can look ahead to 2025. In 2024, it's Aiden O'Connell's job to lose. I have been telling you that since the season ended. There was one guy that they would have been interested in at quarterback in the first round. That guy was unavailable to them. And they held their ground because back in 2023, let's start there, they had added Aiden O'Connell. And then through the season, they ended up adding Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown was a very successful quarterback at Oregon. He's got a lot of things about him that you can like. He's very talented. He's got leadership. He has a tremendous work ethic. He's a hard worker. And they liked him. Now, did they think, hey, I think he can compete this year to be a starter? No. But if Aiden had gone down injured, they would have went to Anthony before Brian Hoyer or probably before a Jimmy Garoppolo. I believe that. So their process is, okay, we got Anthony. He's a developmental guy. He may be able to do something. And they like what he's already done in the National Football League. And they like what he's done in the building. He's come in. He's kept his head down. He's worked diligently. The guys respect him. The guys like him. He didn't come in with an attitude. Certainly he came in with a competitive attitude, but he didn't come in with an attitude disrespectful of the organization or anybody in any locker. They really liked a lot of things they saw from Aiden O'Connell. Internally, they felt like some of the things they didn't like about Aiden didn't mesh with stuff they saw from him at Purdue. Now, you got to understand, the moment he gets picked by Josh McDaniels, he begins to be educated in what McDaniels wanted. Hey, stay in the pocket, stay in the pocket, stay in the pocket. You know, it's all things that you saw primarily from Tom Brady. And so that's the way he operated. In Purdue, he was never Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not trying to insult your intelligence and pretend like he was, but he was extremely more mobile than what you saw last year. So they knew that he could do that based on his time at Purdue. They also knew that almost the moment he got into Vegas, he had demonstrated that he had been hammered, don't. So they knew that there was a juxtapose there between the young rookie and the change in leadership. So they gave him several instructions for what they wanted this offseason. They wanted him to get back to demonstrating mobility. Didn't have to be Patrick Mahomes, but ability to move right to left, forward and backwards. So both horizontally and vertically, being able to move inside the pocket and buy himself a little bit more time. That was important to them. They wanted to see him go out and be able to be more vocal, those types of things. And they love his accuracy. Then they went and said, okay, but we know this. Lots of teams last year had their season hurt because they didn't have a second quarterback. The Raiders knew. We're too good of a team to just go get anybody for a backup. We want a guy who's absolutely going to compete with Aiden O'Connell, going to compete with him. We want a guy that's going to go out there and go to war with him. But we want a guy who, if he doesn't win it, is going to be an extremely capable backup. Now, you can make a lot of arguments about guys being backups last year, but arguably one of the best for that particular need was Gardner Minshew. They knew Gardner. They had played against him. They liked some things that he did. And they thought, this is a guy who can absolutely come in and compete. He's got really good numbers. If he loses, we know the kind of guy he's going to be in the locker room. And so a lot of people have said, ooh, but the Raiders really overpaid. Now, if you go back and look at when he signed, I already talked about this. I was told by people in the building, the reason he got the contract he did was a couple of reasons. Number one, they felt like he was the best backup available with potential to compete for a starting job. Number one. Number two, it's only a 2-year deal. So if he doesn't beat out Aiden, it's relatively cheap money to keep him next year. And it allows them to move on from him quickly if that's what's needed. So yes, did he make good money? Yeah, he did. But do you remember me telling you that the mantra of Tom Telesco is we're going to be frugal but not cheap? We don't mind paying people what we think they're worth. We're just not going to pay a dime more. So they went out and said, for our situation, where 2024 is a year where we're going to decide about Aiden, we're going to look at our future, we're willing to pay a little bit more to go get a guy that if Aiden wins and gets injured, we know we can compete immediately with Gardner. He may even beat out Aiden, but it's not going to be coming in and it's going to be hate each other and tension. It's going to be guys working together on the same team. So they were able to sell Gardner. You're going to get an absolute fair opportunity to win this job. And they made them those assurances. And he was willing to say, yeah, I'm willing to compete. Why? Because he's a competitor. Now, Gardner gets here and has been nothing but a blessing to the Raiders. The players love him. And I'm not saying they don't love Aiden, because they do. Him and Aiden have developed a good relationship. So have him and Anthony, and Aiden and Anthony. And they have a very tight-knit quarterback room. There's no animus. All three want to be the guy, not pretending that they don't. But all three also understand they're going to compete and support who's ever QB1. Now, the QB1 job is Aiden's to lose. He can lose it. I think that they have to give every opportunity to Gardner and Anthony. And whatever happens, it's not going to be a tie with Aiden gets you the job. Whether it's Anthony or Gardner, and I obviously believe, and I think you do too, and anyone with a brain, that Gardner's going to get the chance to beat him. I don't know that Anthony's going to get that chance, but Anthony's performance with a fast start could certainly buy him more opportunity. That said, here is the big part that is important for you to digest. Very important for you to digest. When 2024 is over, if the Raiders feel like, okay, we don't have a quarterback for the future, and this is what I want to talk about today, is understanding the 2025 quarterback situation. Then they have a couple of options, okay? They're not going to be in rebuild mode. They've got a bunch of young stars, and they got a bunch of young players who are burgeoning into stardom. This is a roster that is set to compete for the next 5 years. 4 for sure, probably 5. Okay. Number 1, do they go get Aaron Rodgers? Now, normally a man at his age, in his part of the career, I think your first response is no. But stick with me for a moment. Do they go trade for an Aaron Rodgers and say, listen, here's the deal. We know it's going to cost a lot of money to bring you in. We're fine with that. You're a Excalibur player. When I say we, I'm using the Raider voice because I'm reporting their thinking. Isn't me thinking I'm the organization. But do we go sign Aaron Rodgers and say to Aaron, here's the deal. We think that you are a game changer. We're willing to give you a contract that pays you a lot of money, but we're also want a contract that protects us. We're not going to do something stupid. We're not going to be the Jets and give you the keys to the entire franchise. I'm hearing a lot of people being very critical of Aaron Rodgers, and I think it's foolishness. You cannot, it's like people that have children and they don't correct them and they don't teach them how to grow up. And they're just wild animals. And people say, oh my God, those kids are terrible. No, the parenting is. The parenting. Now, when kids get older, it's a reflection on them growing and free moral will and who they become. But when you have young children that are not parented, it is a reflection on the parent, not the kid. Now, the Jets came in and let Aaron do whatever Aaron wanted. They were so desperate for him, there were no boundaries. Okay, that's not on Aaron. That's on a horribly run New York Jets franchise. Totally on them. What a joke. And so they come in and say to Aaron, hey, we know you know that Devonte's here. We've got all these weapons at wide receiver. We've got all these running back weapons. We've got a very good offensive line, a super defense. This is what we want from you. These are the expectations, X, Y, Z. And part of that may be, hey, we still think Aiden O'Connell may be something. We want you to tutor him, to mentor him, which is not going to be a problem. Aaron Rodgers is not going to be, I say it is not going to be as if it's a definitive, and I'm not speaking definitively, but he is not a guy that would be a jerk nor against the mentoring process at all. But they may say to him, hey, we're looking for you to tell us, I'm going to give you 2 years or 1 year. We're going to go draft in the first round a young rookie that we really like, and they may have one in mind. They might. Or we're going to stick with Aiden and let him be developed, whatever that may be. So the 2025 cornerback situation, if it doesn't pan out in 2024, there's an option of going to get Aaron or another experienced quarterback who can come in with this roster and compete, because they will not be in rebuilding mode. Even if Aiden fails and Gardner fails, this roster's too talented, too young, and too deep. They're going to be still able to compete in 2025. So by doing what they did this year, it allowed the organization to go out and continue to build up the roster. I mean, Brock Bowers was a game changer. It allows them to develop what they have. So let's assume that Aiden does what many people think he might. Now, there's a lot of people that think he's a bust, and you're entitled to any opinion you want. There are a lot of people that think he's Ken Stabler, and you're entitled to have any opinion you want. I disagree with you both. I'm in the middle saying, great kid, hope he turns out to be really good, has shown us a lot, but we have to see more. That's where I'm at. So let's assume that it pans out and he is what people think he is. Now you still have 2 more years on his rookie deal at cheap money, which is what San Francisco has with Brock Purdy, and an organization that continues to get better. Let's say that he fails, but Gardner Minshew really demonstrates something. Great, you got him for cheap next year with the potential of a long-term deal because he's still relatively young. Let's assume Anthony Brown comes on. Okay, you got him, cheap money. Excuse me. You have him for cheap money. You're in a great position. And if none of the 3 pan out, or you're just not happy where you're at, You are financially in a position to go get yourself a tremendous veteran. Go get a rookie if one of these guys didn't pan out, or their lack of maturation was because of maybe an injury. But you still have all of that in place with a tremendously solid roster. When the Raiders are an organization that preaches just win, and I talked about this yesterday. If you didn't watch yesterday's podcast, you really should. But when the Raiders are an organization that preaches just win, I don't blame fans for not thinking marathon and thinking sprint. Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce don't get that luxury. Because, okay, let's say they went out and signed somebody this year. Let's say they went out and got Kirk Cousins. Okay, great. And it goes good for a couple of years and then falls off. Then they got to rebuild. And then everybody's mad again. They're thinking about how do we build this to a place of sustainability? We're thinking a 10-year run, not a 2-year run. And to their credit, I'm going to credit a couple people here. I'm going to be very blunt on this. And one of them, I'm not stunned is not the word. I am shocked and impressed. Shocked and impressed with how Mark Davis has handled this. I think Mark Davis has demonstrated in his career that he has a very quick trigger. And I think sometimes, the decision to get rid of Josh after assurances they were going to finish a year was a good trigger. He realized the mistake and fixed it. I think there are some times, Rich Bisaccia and others, where he pulled the trigger too quick. I think, and let me just say something here, and I've said this before, but I don't think a lot of you have heard it. One thing that Antonio and Tom Telesco have done better than anyone else, Champ Kelly did it as well, but he's part of this team, is Mark Davis is not the owner sitting there being a jerk. And it's his team. It's not being a jerk to run your team. He's letting these guys do what the plan and the vision, and they have sold him on it. Hey, we're thinking building a 10-year sustainable franchise, not a 2-year. And he's let them do their thing, and they have done a masterful job of keeping him informed. Hey, Mark, this is what we're thinking. Mark, this is our plan. Mark, here's how we're approaching salary cap. Mark, here's what we're doing with finances. Mark, here's what we're doing. This is why we want to go. When they presented to him why they wanted to go to Costa Mesa, which was going to cost Mark Davis millions of dollars. Great. I was told that was his answer. Great. Let's do it. So they have really built a synergy between the owner, the coach, and the general manager, a synergy that I do not believe was there when Tom Telesco was hired. I'll deal with that at another day. I'm just going to drop that little nugget and come back to it another time, maybe at the end of the year. But I don't think that synergy was there at first. It's totally there now. And so their approach is, hey, we've built a really good team. If one of these quarterbacks pans out, we're in great shape. But if they don't, and it's not just hoping, we have some reason with all three to be encouraged. But if it doesn't, we're not in bad shape. And we, again, I'm speaking from the Raider voice because I'm reporting, not because I think I'm part of the organization. But hey, we feel like we are really set up. This would be our plan in 20. They have every scenario for next year planned out. What if one of these guys pans out? What if all three of them don't? All of it. And going and get a veteran. And I use Aaron Rodgers because when he says, I look forward to playing with Devonte again, that's not a statement of, man, I hope I get to. So he's making it clear. And I believe that you listen to people's words. He has a mindset. I'm playing with him again. Good. If you're a Raider fan, good. Good. Now, yesterday, somebody reported, the Jets have their eyes on Devonte, like it was some brand new piece of news. We've been telling you that since last year. But it doesn't mean Devonte wants to go anywhere. It doesn't mean the Raiders want him to go anywhere. And if you're an NFL team that thinks you're competing this year and you don't have your eyes on Devonte, you're an idiot. But Raider Nation, don't get swept up into the stop. He's not pushing. The Raiders aren't looking to get rid of him. He doesn't want to go anywhere. I talked about yesterday, if it were to change, if it were to become a rebuilding, sure, I think that's a possibility. The Raiders aren't there. So you know what? I have a beautiful wife. And we were recently in Cleveland, Ohio, having dinner with a very good friend. And he said to Shannon, he goes, and his wife is a wonderful lady. We're very close. And he said to Shannon, "You're a beautiful lady." And he wasn't being inappropriate. He was just commenting on my wife, who's extremely attractive. Okay. He noticed that she was pretty. Didn't mean he was trying to get her, or it doesn't mean that she was looking to leave. Just admiring the fact my wife is beautiful, and she is. So other teams admiring. Okay, let me just say this. You don't think the Raiders are sitting there looking at Chris Jones thinking, man, you imagine how good he'd be next to Christian Wilkins? Doesn't mean the Chiefs want to trade him. So do they have their eye on him? Of course, they're going to play him twice. I mean, just don't make more of it than what it is. I talked about yesterday, the future Devonte. I really encourage you to go back and watch that. But today we wanted to zero in, just really zero in on the quarterback situation in 25. Because I think some people think the Raiders don't have a plan, and that's just categorically false. They have a plan. They have a system. They know what they want to do. I just want to remind you, the organization, Mark Davis and Al Davis, sold the fans just win, baby. And that is what Telesco and Pierce want. But they also know they're trying to build something sustainable for 10 years. Remember this. AP comes from that giant system. He was there with Eli. He knows what it's like to build a sustainable franchise. Tom Telesco's very, very wise. This is a new situation for him because when he was with the Bolts, he had what I believe, these are my words, not him, and I can tell you privately and off the record, he has never trashed the Bolts, ever. Never said anything other than high praise. Okay? That being said, people that I know connected to the organization or very well aware of the organization have told me some horror stories. They did not come from Tom. And so I think this is a new thing for him. He has an owner that says to him, hey, listen, I just want to win. Do what you got to do. And Tom has done a great job of bringing Mark in. He doesn't see Mark as a meddlesome because he's the owner. He understands he's not. AP the same. And these three men talk, communicate, and know where everything's going. I think the 2025 quarterback situation is in great shape for the Raiders. And we all have no idea who's going to be that person. But the way they have set up the franchise, the way they have established a vision and an architectural plan for the future bodes well for the silver and black. I think people need to enjoy 2024. You're going to learn a lot about your organization, your franchise, and you're going to see tangibly the vision of where it's going. I don't think you need to worry about 2025 because I just laid out for you the thinking process. And it's a thinking process that'll work. And it's a thinking process that sets the Raiders up for success. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope you have a great day. God bless you.